Damien Chazelle brought us a beautiful love letter to the media of film, along with a hilarious look at how it's progressed over time.
Does anyone else here need to fuck this scene in the ass?
But it's not just a celebration, it is equally a critique, presented almost like a cost. Committing yourself to something larger than you and this art that you adore, what price can that come with? Babylon didn't do very well. It wasn't particularly well received, and it just didn't make much money, and just not many people saw it. But despite that, I still think it's a brilliant movie, and it's probably one of my favourites. As much as I can say I don't think it's perfect, I don't think I've ever had such an experience with a film where I resonate with it and what it's saying so strongly and to the level I do with Babylon. And I've never really been able to figure out how to articulate my thoughts and word my feelings on this movie, so here goes nothing. However, I have recently learned that I cannot talk about Babylon without first talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights was something that I watched for the first time the other day, after keeping my friend's Blu-ray for way longer than any sane person should have. But eventually, I pushed the boat out, and I put Boogie Nights into my PS5. And it's a great movie, and it is undoubtedly a foundation to what Babylon is. Now, it's difficult for me to judge the two, because I saw Babylon first, but Boogie Nights still came out much earlier, so I'm kind of going to have a little bit of bias, I think, because Babylon was just my first experience. But it is unarguable, really, that both stories are told in very similar ways, and even with what they're trying to say, it is very similar, but I do feel like Babylon justifies its own existence and isn't just a rehash of Boogie Nights. Whilst both are explorations of art and that expression and people's dedication to it and the effects that it has on a person, yeah, all of that can be applied to both movies, but I think Babylon has a very specific agenda about film, and is expressing what that means to everyone behind the camera as well as the characters, and it conveys the filmmaking process from all sides in such an entertaining and almost surreal way at times. It makes full use of being a film to talk about being a film, if that makes sense. It treats the art form almost as some fantastical force, but simultaneously, despite issues in the industry and the creation, that doesn't have to make the art itself any less special. And as I say, the story beats between these two movies absolutely go very similarly. Meeting everyone at a great opening party sequence, seeing them in their ordinary life before getting picked up in the industry, climbing to the very top and then finding themselves in predicaments with no money, and an actor from Spider-Man 2 showing up to play the villain. Yeah, I see all of that, and if you do feel like Babylon is a ripoff of Boogie Nights, I can't do much to argue with you. But personally, I feel like Babylon shows its love for Boogie Nights and, like I say, justifies its own existence. As much as it is seemingly inspired by that, it is at the same time its own thing.
You'll never forget it.
If you were to say Babylon had a main protagonist, you'd probably say it was either Manny or Nelly, but really I don't think the film does. Every character is fleshed out as much as they individually need to be. They have arcs that carry across the entire movie and end all in satisfying ways. In doing this, we're allowed to see the aspects of Hollywood and how it affects every different individual. That opening sequence, though, is great. It's an absolute spectacle. After seeing Manny, a character who it establishes is kind of at the bottom of this ladder, essentially, as well as Nelly, both in awe of the sheer spectacle of this party, because it is housing all of these stars that they dream of being. And talking of the party, there's no better time to mention the soundtrack of the film, from Justin Horowitz, I think that's how you say his name. It's just great. It has such a unique feel that matches the film's tone perfectly, and it's just a great accompaniment to the visuals in every scene. I adore this soundtrack, and it's used in the best way, and I love it. But anyway, following the events of this chaotic evening, by sheer will, Nelly forces herself into the party with the help of Manny, and Nelly ends up getting chosen to replace a girl who died that night who was set to star in a movie the following day. And Manny accompanies Jack Conrad to his house to ensure he gets there safely because he's very drunk. And from that point, their lives were entangled with each other and their passions of art. They spoke about it whilst getting coked up at the party, and then Jack makes a speech in that next morning about why art means something to him.
I want to be part of something bigger, I guess.
Bigger than what?
Bigger than this.
We've got to innovate. We've got to inspire.
Bigger, better, important. Something important. To be part of something important, something that lasts, that means something.
I love that answer.
We got to dream beyond these pesky shells of flesh and bone.
And you're watching the movie and you can...
And you
can
escape. You have to be in your own shitty
Exactly.
fucking life.
Map those dreams onto celluloid and print them into history. Turn today into tomorrow so that tomorrow's lonely man may look up at that flickering screen and say, for the very first time, Eureka! I am not alone!
But at the same time, it's something even more important than life. You can feel it. Like, I don't know, movies are sad sometimes. Movies are fucking
They
happy.
make you feel something.
Yeah.
This really establishes what the movie's about so well, and I'm already hooked on every single character. We've met everyone, and we already know enough to care about them and want to see what role they play. I don't see any of the actors in this movie. I don't see Jack Conrad and see Brad Pitt. I don't see Nelly and see Margot Robbie. I see all the characters, and I get totally lost in them. And also, I should say, a lot of the things that happen in the film happen in a very comedic way, and it is a genuinely funny movie. And what's impressive about that is that it balances a lot of serious moments, but the tones never interrupt each other. The comedy is never interrupting the more somber and heartfelt moments, but vice versa, they never interrupted the comedic moments. But after the party, this is where we see what their lives are really like, just in every day, which just kind of widens our perspectives of where they are right now, and to then see where they end up by the end of the film. All the right and wrong decisions that characters make throughout this film feel authentic, and as a result of their desperation to be involved with this thing that they love. They chase their dreams as hard as possible, and I guess it's really up to you to decide if it was worth it. Whilst Manny and Nelly rise through the introduction of sound, after an admittedly intense adjusting period.
Who sneezed? Who the fuck sneezed?
Fucking asshole!
Shut the fuck up! Now, if anyone stops this scene again, I will shit on you! I will shit in your mouth, I promise you!
We see how the art is changing, and we see the effects of that in all different lights. We see it in this hilarious sequence of having to get the sound and volume just right, and everyone's just losing their shit, and it's just not going well at all. And we see Manny seizing the opportunity of utilizing sound and music in the film format. But then we have Jack Conrad, who was already a star, but with sound arriving in film, now everything's shifting. He doesn't have the same place at all. It's become a totally new game. This new wave that has come along has almost pushed everything in its way. And this is how it always happens. This is the cycle of the industry. Eleanor St. John, the journalist, makes the point. What Jack is a part of is bigger than him. He knows this. We know this. Everyone in the film knows this. This is what makes it special. This is why we connect to it. This is why they care about it. This is why they're doing it, because Jack Conrad, Nelly and Manny see the beauty of it and want to create it and be a part of it. But despite that, the film also very clearly acknowledges that there's a tragedy to it in the real world. You can see the fact that it's bigger, you can dedicate your life to it, but it does not care about you back. It's brutal. This is why Eleanor has lasted in her line of work. She's just been watching, she stayed on the outskirts, she never got truly entangled. As stated, she's a cockroach, and they always survive. And staying in the position that she did allowed her to survive in her work.
You don't know what it is to put yourself out there. You're just a cockroach. I've been counted out before. This
Have
isn't
you ever
new to
stopped
me.
to think why, when there's a house fire, the people die and the cockroaches all survive?
Jesus Christ.
What happened was you thought the house needed you. But it doesn't. It doesn't need you any more than it needs the roaches. And the roaches, knowing this, crawl back into the dark, lay low, and make it through. See, but you held the spotlight. It's those of us in the dark, the ones who just watch, who survive. And there'll be hundreds more like it, too. It's the idea that sticks.
We see how dedicating yourself to the passion can change you as well, with Manny mostly, who is the personification of how it can change you in a more negative way. Becoming kind of a high-level producer,
studio executive,
one of the people who are pushing the medium forward, in turn ushering out the old, keeping his own control. He ends up forcing Nelly and Lady Faye to keep apart because of the higher-ups and the public's perception of them being a couple may affect the films, forcing people to compromise who they are. Doing the same with Sidney Palmer, telling him that he doesn't look dark enough in the lighting and forcing him to add makeup to look darker. Manny is becoming the studio execs that there are too many of. Then also just ushering out Jack. Sure, there are quite a lot of moving parts to all of this, but Manny totally ignoring Jack towards the latter half of the film is hard to watch. Jack being Manny's gateway. Manny would not be in this position if it wasn't for Jack. But by time Manny's got his place in this industry, he doesn't care. And Manny attempts to justify these actions with the belief that it's for this cause, for this bigger picture. But the truth is that he's become a part of the problem. And more than anything, whilst watching this happen, it's infuriating and upsetting because we don't see Manny as a bad person, and I truly don't believe that he is. We see how the process has burned out Nelly as well, and she's been gambling and just been stuck going down this rabbit hole. And by this time, Jack Conrad's films have been received poorly. He's just coming in and out of lots of different films that aren't what he was doing before. If people are going to watch them, they're laughing at his performance. He's doing all these films and projects that he doesn't care about, doing all these things that he wasn't originally in this for, making his way through an industry that is now unrecognizable to him. After being told repeatedly that his time is up, that his movies suck and are failing, then seeing Lady Faye, one of his oldest friends, and realizing despite his effects on and his love for the art, to him, he believes his time making this meaningful art is over, which is all he felt he really had. We've seen his passion through the film above anything. He's not been able to keep a hold of a marriage, but that love for film has stayed intact and been his heart. And so when he's being told by loads of people around him that he's failing at this, he feels like he's got nothing. And as the scene plays out, you can kind of figure out where we're going, and this kind of arc really begins when Nelly's bitten by the snake and Jack's just watching this chaos, this absolute insanity happening around him that he's got no control over, and that he doesn't recognize these people who are in this world that he's in. And after speaking to Lady Faye and Jack walks up the stairs, you kind of see where it's going. It is absolutely heartbreaking when he takes his own life. It's beautifully shot, it's beautifully scored, and it's one of my favourite scenes of the movie. Later on in the film, Nelly has found herself in trouble financially after her own struggles in the industry. As Manny has risen, he's tried to shape her appearance into someone that she wasn't. He wanted her to look good for all the right people, but in trying to do that, he was forcing her to be someone that she wasn't, but someone that Manny and the studios wanted her to be. And that kind of leads to her own downfall, because she's not someone to cave in and be something that she's not. But despite this, she returns to Manny when in need, because they have this connection and they've known each other for a very long time, and he simply can't turn her down, and he never would be able to. So with the promise of fixing her problem, they end up meeting Tobey Maguire's character, and for 15 minutes the film becomes an absolute horror movie. Maguire plays a character called James McKay, and obviously is involved in a lot of drug use and all of the above there. But this entire sequence represents to me the untamed nature of Hollywood at the time, and I believe is meant to represent the studio heads that Manny has been kind of rising towards. Running his own form of entertainment in this massive, absolutely fucked underground party with an alligator just chilling down there. But I think that point is kind of shown when he's spitballing his own insane movie ideas. And then this is where Manny sees his own downfall after Manny's friend brings prop money instead of real money to give to James McKay, and McKay realizes this. So obviously he's not particularly happy about that. Following this, Manny and Nellie are trying to escape, and when it seemed like just maybe they could get away and live happily ever after, they catch up with Manny, but they let him go. Just because they see the pure fear in him, they let him go. However, in a scene previously, we see that Nellie has kind of accepted her fate almost. She thinks her time is up as well. She thinks she's out of it. She doesn't think she's the person to be the star anymore. And whilst we think maybe Manny has convinced her to come with him, the fact that Nellie ends up just dancing into the night kind of proves that she had made up her mind. And another tragic ending to a character, as we see in a newspaper clipping later on, that she was found dead due to a drug overdose. All the characters that we've known throughout the movie have gone in all their different directions, and their stories have ended until we return with Manny, years later with his newfound family, returning to his dream that he had and was a part of for a long time. Choosing to go into the cinema, the initial feelings are of heartbreak, almost a feeling of being used, until a familiar song plays. His actions did have ripples on this industry, on the art, and they've already taken shape, and they would continue to for generations going forward. And he realizes that in that moment, this art, what that means is massive, and it means more to people than we often realize. This is shown using just that montage at the end that is simply a pure celebration of cinema and the art form, and how it progresses, and how it is this fantastical, beautiful thing, and that despite the heartbreak around it and the problems in making it, the art itself is still there and is still special. Babylon is an absolute wild journey, and I feel really bad for the movie because I think the marketing was simply not good, in my opinion, and I think that's a large part to why it didn't do well. I didn't even have any idea what the film was going to be about when me and my friend went to watch it. It was a bit of a last minute decision based off a cast that we liked and the odd trailer that we'd seen, but we still didn't know what it was about from the trailers, and even after the movie finished, I didn't really love it. I didn't particularly like it that much. It was a 2.5, 3-star movie, but it stayed with me. I could not stop thinking about it, and now it's a 5-star movie and in my Letterboxd top 4, so there you go. I definitely think the film has some pacing issues, and it does suffer in the first half of not really knowing what the point of any of this is. I think on a second viewing, that's why this hits much more, and for me, having watched Boogie Nights just a couple of nights prior,
Come on, you puppies!
that actually made me enjoy it even more. I know some will probably complain and say that this is a rehash of Boogie Nights, and like I said, I can't do much to argue with it, but I just love both movies, guys, and that's okay. So, my final consensus: just go and watch Babylon yourself, you cowards.
Because it's bigger than you. No one asks to be left behind.
What I do means something to millions of people.
But in 100 years, when you and I are both long gone, anytime someone threads a frame of yours through a sprocket, you'll be alive again.
When I'm done, I'm gonna dance my ass off into the night. And they'll know, everyone will fucking know that they could never control one goddamn fucking thing.
Just want to be part of something bigger.
One day, every person on every film shot this year will be dead. And one day, all those films will be pulled from the vaults. And all their ghosts will dine together.
Honey, you don't become a star. You either are one or you ain't. I am.
A child born in 50 years will stumble across your image flickering on a screen and feel he knows you, like a friend. Though you breathed your last before he breathed his first. You've been given a gift. Be grateful. Your time today is through, but you'll spend eternity with angels and ghosts.